So you're walking down the street in Hollywood and you discover a box of letters between the Star Trek producers, a treasure trove of insider information. What would you do? Well, I found that box.
And he shared it with me, John Kramer.
I shared it with Kramer.
So that we could share it with the universe.
Nomad, the perfect Star Trek podcast.
Hello and welcome to Nomad, the perfect Star Trek podcast, where we know things about Star Trek that you don't, because we have all the letters, emails, and correspondence straight from the desks of the Star Trek producers. My name is David Pompeii, and on this week's show, we will be reading a letter straight from the desk of Michael Piller regarding his thoughts on the Star Trek Voyager episode Displaced. We will be checking in with a bit about the Ferengi rules of acquisition, and we have a few other surprises. And as always, here's my dear friend, John Kramer.
Hello, David. It's good to see you and hear you again.
Hey, John. How are you, my friend? How are things going since we checked in?
Oh, everything is great in Starbase Chicago, David. It's a beautiful day here.
I am podcasting live from the Tarak planet in the Delta Quadrant, where two Ferengi are running around saying they're sages.
Yeah, you got to lend me your starship.
Yeah, you got to get out. It's a big universe, John.
Okay. Well, I'll do that. Just give me your starship.
Well, buddy.
Yeah, well, what I've been doing is collecting these pins here. And if I can, I'd like to do a shout out to the guy that I got these from. His name is Jeff, and he's on Etsy, and it's called Geek Dad Gifts. And he makes these things with a three-dimensional printer. And they're very inexpensive and very nice. I have a ton of them, so I'm going to be wearing different ones every week. He also did this. Let me see if I can. Of course, if you're listening, you can't see it, but he made this little Starship Enterprise replica with, again, three-dimensional printer, or as they call it on Star Trek, a replicator. But this is what we have today. This thing is very cool, and he just threw that in for fun, and I got a big kick out of that.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Geek Dad Gifts on Etsy and Jeff.
Hey, buddy, for those of you who are listening and won't see the video, the pin he's referring to is this really nice-looking Next Generation pin.
No, this is Voyager.
Oh yeah, it's a Voyager. I'm sorry, it's a Voyager.
Right now, I have a Next Generation one too. I mean, it's amazing. It's like 30 pins or something like that for $36, and they're all really nice.
Wow,
so I get a lot.
It looks authentic. It looks like you could tap it and like call the ship.
Well, if I tap it now, you can put a sound effect in later, and it'll work.
All right, go ahead and tap it.
There we go.
Wow, dude, it works, but you didn't call anybody.
Kramer to energize.
Kramer to energize. People will be like, what? This is the ship is called the Enterprise. So I'm just Kramer to energize.
Energize is old school. That's from the original show.
That's true. I wish I had, but he wouldn't have had that. He would have had, where's mine?
He would have had
a communicator, which my communicator is out of power, by the way. You pop that bad boy open and it would make all the sounds, and I have no power on my Star Trek communicator.
Yeah, I remember they were making cell phones like that too. I've never seen anyone with one, but they were selling them for a while.
The flip phone, my friend, the flip phone. If you want to be disconnected,
but they made a Star Trek version of it.
Oh. Yeah, you know what? I think I saw those. Back in the day, they had a Star Trek version of the flip phone. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. They're probably out there somewhere.
I wonder if any Trek fans out there have one. Send us a picture, and I'll post it on the podcast.
Absolutely. I'd like to see the reaction of people on the street when you pull it out, too.
Oh, it would be like, what the fuck? What a fucking moron. That's probably how they would look at me. That's our cue, dude. It's time to take a break. We'll be right back. And we are back. Thank you very much. John, we're going to do our first error feature.
How much time do we have here?
We did make quite a few mistakes in our first episode. But we have a cool little graphic, and some sound effects. Can we play those?
Error, examine.
That's it. We're into the error segment. And as always, if you, a fan of the podcast, hear us make an error, let us know and you could win a no prize.
Yes, a valuable no prize.
So, number one on our list of errors. So we have 4 errors today, and I have the first one. You mentioned that I watch all of the Star Trek shows over and over every year. Right.
You start with the original show, and then you move on to Deep Space Nine or Next Generation.
I watch them in order. Next Generation. I check the dates. I watch the movies when they came out, then pick it up with the next show. And I said that I watched the original series through Next Generation. I watched the original series through Voyager.
Okay. So you never saw Enterprise?
Well, I've watched the Enterprise series maybe 3 times, so I don't watch all of them. I pick and choose the episodes I like. Okay. And it ended on such a whimper, with such a bad episode that I never get that far.
Yeah.
So I get the first error. I didn't even mention properly the shows that I watch. So.
Okay, here we go.
Error number 2 was committed by John Kramer.
It was. Is this the Jerry Ryan, Jerry Taylor you're referring to?
Yes, you had 7 of 9 on the brain.
I mixed up the producer with the actress, which was a mistake.
Yes, Jerry Taylor is the producer and writer and a brilliant Star Trek mind, and Jerry Ryan is just hot. Next error, number 3, was me. I said Michael Taylor was a producer on Star Trek. I meant to say Jerry Taylor. I combined Michael Piller and Jerry Taylor. Mm-hmm. Now, Michael Taylor is a writer. So, and then we come to error number 4. John, you said Nurse Chapel threw the plumbing soup at Spock.
Oh, silly me.
And you meant to say
Spock threw it at Nurse Chapel.
Exactly.
He's going through Pon farr.
He threw it at Nurse Chapel. So those are our errors. We will try to be perfect next time. And I think right here we should probably, since that's the end of the segment, we should probably play the error thing one more time, right? Can we get that?
Okay, let's go for it.
Error, examine.
Okay, that was fun.
Yes, it was.
And we'll be
Hopefully
back.
that'll be a shorter segment each week as we do this more.
Or we won't have to do it at all.
That'd be really good.
But I don't think we should award a no prize this week. I found the errors because I had the tape. You didn't really have it, so you would. I found the errors and told you about them. But I don't think we should give no prizes to ourselves, right?
I think you're right.
So no prize will be awarded this week.
I think Quark would approve.
Although we do have a no prize graphic with some music. So if you win a no prize, this will happen. And then we'll see your picture. So can we see what that is? Okay, and then your picture will come up, and you've officially won a no prize. I guess we should
for people who are listening now, David, what did they just miss?
Oh, well, they just missed. For the errors, it was a red light symbol, like what would have been on the robot Nomad, and it'll say error, which you heard. And for the no prize, it's a gold cup, like a trophy, that literally says no prize.
Made of gold plus latinum.
Made of gold pressed latinum. And that's our cue to take a break. When we come back, we will be reading the letter from the desk of Michael Piller, so stay tuned. And we're back. How you doing over there, John?
I'm doing great. I can't wait for you to read the letter.
All right.
From Michael Pillar.
Exactly. And this week's letter is dated January 13th, 1997, and it is from the desk of Michael Pillar. It is to Jerry Taylor regarding the episode Displaced. And I believe it CC'd Rick Berman.
Right.
And
the episode's written by Lisa Klink.
Yes, written by Lisa Klink. Michael Pillar wrote this letter January 10th, 1997. And for those of you who don't know the episode Displaced, it's that one where Voyager's flying along through space and some guy just shows up in a corridor like he got transported in, saying he doesn't know where he came from or he doesn't know how he got there. And they take him to sick bay, and more people start disappearing, and they realize at the same time.
So people disappear off of Voyager,
right?
And then aliens appear on the Voyager at the same time,
and eventually
aliens are saying we don't know how this is happening, but they're lying,
and they're lying. Eventually, they take over the ship, and we find out that this is what they do to get new technology and new ships, and they've transferred the Voyager crew to a holding cells where they have other races held. After a big hullabaloo, yes, I said the word hullabaloo, the Voyager crew gets the ship back.
Yeah, I thought it was a stupid episode myself. I did not buy it.
Michael Pillar, you said you didn't like the episode. Michael Pillar says, I think this story has a lot of potential if you can give it the production value it requires. The only caution I have is to be careful that our crew does not look foolish. And I think you're right. They kind of look foolish.
I think what he's talking about with production values, I guess, is they have to go to this other the zoo where they're being kept, and that has to look good.
Yeah.
And it looked okay.
It looked okay. And you have to have more than one environment for all these different aliens.
Yeah, it looked like a mall.
Like a mall, a zoo mall of aliens.
Yeah, yeah.
So he goes on to say, I'm with you with the first strange occurrence, and even the second. But after the third one or so, I feel that the crew is late in suspecting what's really going on. The false natural phenomenon is such a difficult concept to believe, at least in the sketchy form that it is now, that I just feel it took our people an awfully long time before they responded to what was a clear threat to the ship. I don't know that you'll be able to make it last as long as you'd like to. I have to agree with him.
I agree too. It's just they're too nice.
After all the things that you've seen,
right?
Once you discover that soon as this alien came on, Tess suddenly vanished, you've got to know some shit's happening here. It doesn't take more people to vanish for you to figure it out.
Yeah, and the explanation, well, they said they didn't know what was happening. You mean they lied?
Oh, my goodness.
Who would lie?
Yeah, who would lie? So the second paragraph goes, on that subject, I'd like to make a couple observations about the show that's on this week. Oh, he's digressing to another show, the show Alter Ego. I thought there were some very nice moments between Paris and Torres in that show. However, I had serious objections to the ending. I felt that the resolution was not credible and, frankly, almost silly. Now, Alter Ego, I watched it.
Here's the problem, David.
But wait, that's the one where the hologram chick falls in love with Tuvok.
Right.
After Harry falls in love with a hologram, and we find out it's an alien living in some weird nebula who's been able to tap into the thing. And there was a couple of nice moments, I thought, with Torres and Paris. But I don't.
But he starts talking about all this violence towards women and stuff, and it's,
let me read.
There's nothing violent. Yeah, there's nothing violent.
He says, "I felt that the resolution was not credible and silly, but more seriously, it clearly presents an attitude that combines sex and violence between men and women that I find extremely uncomfortable. There was no violence and there was no sex."
No, because he's talking about the wrong episode.
Because then he says, no matter how you paint it through the Vulcan babble, this was a fight between a man who wanted sex with a woman who didn't want sex with him, and he was trying to beat her up. That's disturbing. That never happened.
Never happened, no. She's interested. It's very platonic. They hardly even touch. I don't think they even do touch each other.
No, they play that game, Talco.
Vulcan chess.
They play Talco.
Vulcan chess. Right, and they have this very platonic, and she's in love with him, and he likes her, but he's, this is not going to work. And so we were very confused by this until I went and checked. And he's talking about a totally different episode, which is Blood Fever, which aired in February of 97, February 15th of 97. So there's some discrepancy here with the dates that I'm not quite sure about, but that's the episode where Ensign Vorik, who's a Vulcan in engineering, starts to go through Ponfar and attaches himself to a B'Elanna Torres because he needs someone to mate with. And it gets really violent. I mean, all the stuff he's talking about happens there. So that's what they were talking about.
Do you know what? This letter is dated the 10th.
Right.
That episode that we're talking about, Displaced, aired on May 7th. And you said that other one was February. He's got the two confused. There are some moments with Torres, and there is a Vulcan love interest type story. Mm-hmm. But it's not between the two people he thinks.
Totally different, yeah.
Yeah, he confused the two issues. Now, is there a question about the dates on the letters?
I think he might have, I mean, I don't know if it's, they just put the wrong date down or maybe he lost track of the episodes. I don't know if they were sending him tapes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
probably
true. Were back
he
then,
was probably looking at tapes, yeah.
He looked at the tape and he confused the two names. But
the two episodes.
The Blood Fever was a great episode, though.
And you say Vorik, the Vulcan who's on the ship.
Right, in engineering.
That I think is the episode Displaced, I think is the first episode where we see him actually liking B'Elanna, and Paris and Vorik have an unspoken competition for her attention going on in that episode. So it's easy to see how he confused the two, especially if he's looking at tapes and reading scripts and things or whatever, and trying to put up insurrection.
Yeah, no, it's but what I find interesting is how he is so disturbed by the resolution, which basically is that when Vorik first approaches B'Elanna, he gets he forces a Vulcan mind meld on her, and then he infects her with the Ponfar, so that she's got this fever too, except she's not interested in him. She's interested in Paris. And so she starts getting into it with Paris, and that's really the first time you see, in a big way, her acknowledging the fact that she is interested in Paris, because he's been, I think it was pretty obvious he was interested in her up until that point, and she was just holding back. But then what happens is Vorik winds up fighting Torres. And it's like a muck time where Spock and Kirk fight, and then Spock burns out, the Ponfar in the fight. And so what happens here is instead of fighting Kirk, he's fighting B'Elanna Torres. And so at the end of it burns out. That's what the explanation is.
I'm not buying the whole Vulcan mind meld giving a Klingon Ponfar. I'm not buying it. It's ridiculous. Especially when you consider that the only reason Vulcans have Ponfar is because they repress their emotions. But Klingons are very passionate. They wouldn't have, if he tried to give her Ponfar, which is a ridiculous notion anyway, I don't see why it would affect her when she's already so passionate.
Well, look at it like this. It just gets her hornier, and the person she's horny for is Tom Paris. So it's like
Klingons are already like that.
Yeah, but she's half human.
Actually, she's a quarter. She's a quarter human.
It's a quarter. Okay, so she's holding back
And-
whatever, and this kind of releases.
I don't buy it. Humans are passionate too. Not quite as passionate as Klingons.
Yeah,
But I
what's
don't buy
interesting
it.
is, well, the other interesting thing is the show we're actually talking about this week was Displaced.
Yeah.
And that was written by Lisa Klink, and then Blood Fever is also written by Lisa Klink.
Wow, I wonder what's
so I
going
think she
on
was-
with Lisa Klink.
Well, she's the one who she set up the Vorik showing interest in B'Elanna Torres there, and then she comes back with the second episode where she sees it to its conclusion.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's our cue. It's time for a break. We'll be right back.
Break.
And we're back. Okay, let's pick it up with the last paragraph where Michael Pillar writes, also, after seeing the tag, which I felt was very effective, I think we are promising the audience something we may not have plans to deliver. And by the tag, he is watching a tape. And he saw the promo. And the tag is that last bit of video and audio you hear that frames it for you and makes you decide whether you want to watch it or not. Hopefully you want to watch it. So,
Right. And the tag is the Borg in Blood Fever. At the end of I believe it's the end of Blood Fever. Yeah, that they return to the planet that Torres and Vorik fought on, and they discover the body of a Borg, a skeleton. And they go, oh, look what we found in the woods here. There's a Borg here. They're Borgs in this here woods.
yeah, he has confused the two episodes. He's totally talking about a different episode now and not Displaced. And it says, he goes on to say, we've got a 1 hour episode of the Borg, if my memory serves. But after viewing that cliffhanger, I would be expecting more. It's a shame the studio didn't go for the two-parter that was talked about. But I think you've got to get at least one more Borg storyline development or we will disappoint a lot of people. And he signs it, Michael Pillar.
Well, now, so this is, I believe what he's talking about is at the end of the season is when they begin it's the introduction of 7 of 9.
Oh, it's time for that already.
Yeah, because she comes in at the beginning of the 4th season, but I believe, I mean, you would know better than I do because you watch this more, but I believe that's how this season ends with 7 of 9, since, they encounter the Borg, and that's where 7 of 9 comes in.
Right. She comes in to facilitate.
And then Cass leaves.
She comes in to facilitate the interaction between the Borg and Janeway after this deal.
Yeah.
And
I have to say that was one of the smoother in television, to pull a supporting character out like Cass and then bring another one in actually who surpasses her. I mean, it's pretty rare to pull it off like that.
Speaking of Cass, there's a very interesting story. I don't know if you know about Cass leaving the show. And I'm going to have to tease this for the next episode because we really don't have time to talk about it right now. But remind me about Cass leaving the show and what surrounded that. Because they wanted to make room for 7 of 9, and it was originally decided that Harry Kim would be cut.
Right.
So we'll talk about that another time. We can't really talk to it right now. So Kramer, we're talking about the episode Displaced, and we got a little sidetracked because Michael Pillar started talking about. He thought he was talking about a second episode, but was actually talking about a third episode that we've all just talked about.
Yeah, you don't happen to have the response in your box of letters.
That's the thing now. I need to go back through those letters and see if I can find the responses. Because I would imagine that Brandon Braga and Jerry Taylor wrote back going, dude, you're off the fucking buddy. You're off the planet on this one. Because that's not what we're talking about. So I actually need to go look for that And that's another thing. That's another thing that we ought to save, for next episode or the episode after that, and get the responses from them to this letter. That would be interesting.
If we've got them, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. Thank you for sticking around. We're going to talk a little bit about the critical and fan reaction to that episode, Displaced. And I want to start with a quote by a guy named by a quote by a guy named Alan Croker, who said his only regret of this entire episode was the Nereans, the people who are displacing the Voyager crew. He thought they should look nice but be nasty, and that he wanted their motivation to not just be that they're taking over the ship. He wanted their motivation to be that they were going to eat the crew. Like that old Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man.
To Serve Man, right.
Where you think it's a cookbook about how to actually cook up and serve man.
Right.
So I have two questions for you. First of all, I don't know who Alan Croker is. I'm hoping you do.
I don't.
And what do you think of that notion?
I like it. It's something we hadn't seen before. I mean, it's, why not? It's, I don't know. I mean, I think the episode was kind of silly to begin with, because they've got space travel and all this, and it's a big universe out there, and they're like sneaking in, like, we'll sneak and grab this and we'll sneak and grab that over there. But eventually somebody's going to come along and go and, put the hammer down on them, like, get away from our star base. They're just like, they're parasites.
Yeah.
Feeding off other people. And I hated their wardrobe, too. I thought they looked really stupid.
They did look stupid. My son I was watching it the other day, doing research for our episode, and my son was like, look at those silly hats. Like, he thought they looked stupid, too. That's hilarious. Dude, I think they should, instead of calling this episode Displaced, I think they should call it Plot Hole. This should be the Plot Hole episode. There are more plot holes in this episode. Let me just start. I got a list of them. First of all, how come nobody knows Kes has left the ship? She's in everybody's business every episode ad nauseum. She's gone. Nobody knows. You would think as many times as people get snatched off the ship, the computer would warn people, Kes has left the ship. So I'm like, how did they not know Kes has left the ship? No intruder alert, nothing. People just show up. Other crew members just disappear, and nobody knows until somebody informs the bridge. Ensign so-and-so is missing. Like, come on. They should know. Then you got, once they realize the ship's being taken over, you got Janeway and Chakotay. Nobody locks out the command controls. Nobody locks out the bridge. Nobody locks out the command controls. They decide they want to fight, but they leave the computer, the ship, everything else vulnerable. Makes no sense. Then after Chakotay finds out that Janeway's gone, he would have locked out the command controls. Does he? No. Him and one guy try to take back the ship or try to sabotage the ship. It's ridiculous.
I agree with everything you just said. They don't. It's like, this isn't your first rodeo, guys.
Oh.
Like, you're in this hostile space. It's like there's trouble around every corner in the Delta Quadrant. Anything weird happens, immediately it should be. There was in the episode we were just talking about, Alter Ego, when the hologram shows up in Tuvok's cabin. Mm-hmm. First thing he does is, and he knows exactly what it is. Boom, intruder alert, and he sets everything off immediately.
Yeah.
And he's the head of security. And so there's got to be stuff in place, and they're all like, well, these people seem nice.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. You've got these, I forget how many alien races in this habitat. Clearly, most of them have been trying to break out. Some of them for years. The Voyager crew was there less than an hour. They've already broken out. And figured out how to take over this ship, but didn't know how to protect their own. Like, I didn't buy it. And can I ask, when the Nerians come on the ship, where'd they get the phasers? They've got phasers. They've got Starfleet phasers, and they know how to use them.
Yeah, I hate that stuff.
And like you said before, they just immediately know how to use the ship, how to control it, how to take over, change all the command codes. They just know everything.
Yeah. You see, that's like, I remember in The City on the Edge of Forever from the original show, there's that scene where, I think it's McCoy leaves a phaser on the ground, and an old drunk comes up to it, picks it up, starts pushing buttons on it, and he vanishes. You know, the thing overloads or whatever, and it just totally disintegrates the guy. That's how it should be. You pick up a piece of alien technology, you just don't start pushing buttons on it.
No.
Because it can do God knows what.
And the Nerians, if you watch the phaser fight, they're better with phasers than the trained Federation.
Yeah.
It's just, it was just so ridiculously bad. And can I say one more thing about the Nerians? They can't stand cold weather, and they've got a cold environment, and they're chasing Paris and Torres through the habitat, and they go and hide in the cold environment. The Nerians go in and chase after them. Why?
Right.
Why not just lock the door and let them freeze to death?
That's a very good point.
Why would you risk going in there and freezing yourself? Which is what happens, and then Torres and Paris take their weapons and go use them to help take over the ship.
And they're on their own ship. This is their environment, so they have no way to transport out of it.
Which is very strange.
Yeah, it's like you can transport from this environment to a moving starship, but you're in this environment, your home base, and you don't have any way to communicate with anybody else. They're going, or at least say, could you guys beam me over a coat?
Or something, yeah. So I think it's pretty clear this episode should have been called Plot Hole. And we'll be back right after this. And we're back. And so, Kramer, we have a special treat from you right now, don't we?
Oh, we're going to talk some Ferengi today?
We're going to talk some Ferengi today. What's the name of your bit this week?
This is called Rule of Acquisition number 95. Which is
Rule of Acquisition.
Expand or Die.
Rule of Acquisition number 95, Expand or Die with John Kramer. Mr. Kramer, you have the con.
Thank you, David. Well, the reason I'm thinking about Expand or Die is simply because of this story we've been talking about, Displaced, because that is the philosophy of this race, that they're taking a page out of the Ferengi notebook, that you either keep expanding your territory or you die. And that's what they're doing there, except they're doing it in a really cheesy way. Instead of taking over planets and stuff, they're just sneaking around and grabbing star bases and some ships here and there. And then on top of that, instead of making customers out of the people, they lock them up in a zoo. The Ferengis would never do that. There's got to be a rule of acquisition that says don't lock your customers up in a zoo, because you can't make any money that way.
Ferengi rule number 286, don't lock up your customers.
Yeah.
That is pretty silly. If they knew anything about the Ferengi rules of acquisition, this episode might never have happened.
Yeah. I think the Ferengi could have taken them for everything they have.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Hey, quick game. What setting is this phaser on?
I believe I was just stunned.
Yes, you were stunned. We should have a little fanfare and some confetti work off the screen, because Kramer knows he was stunned. See, but if this had happened,
I'd be like that old man in the alley, disintegrated.
You'd be dead, my friend. Well, folks, thank you for checking in with us this week. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to support our podcast, please share it with Star Trek fans everywhere.
or Klingon fans or Ferengi fans. We'll take whatever.
That's right. And make sure you catch the latest. You can follow us at the perfectstartrekpodcast.com. You can also watch the video on our Star Trek Podcast YouTube channel. And the name of that channel is...
it's Nomad, the Perfect Star Trek Podcast.
On YouTube. You
YouTube.
can also join us on Twitter, and we have a new Twitter handle, which we will show on the screen right now.
Right, and if we got any of it wrong, you can count it as an error next week.
All right, John, thank you so much, and I think that's it for us this week.
It is. Let's give a shout out to our interns.
Oh, yeah. My intern's name is Pete.
My intern's name is Eddie.
All right, the shout out to Pete and Eddie, our
who are
virtual
gonna fix all
intern.
these, and they're going to fix all this stuff we were talking about.
Well, thanks again for listening. And what's your line, John?
Kramer out.
I thought you were going to say live long and prosper.
You can do that.
Then I was going to say Jolan True. And then I was going to say Kapla. And then I was going to say resistance is futile.
Hey, folks, see you next time. How's that?